Aloha, everybody. I'm Desmond Hakias with Healing with Aloha, and we have a special guest today. We are a little late. Technical issues. I didn't realize I had to go and, well, I know I just haven't gone live in a while, and so I had to delete some videos in the IG story before we went live. But I have a special guest from the East Coast, and her name is Celi. This is her first time going live with someone else. Okay, here we go. Yay!
We made it, and on my Hawaii time. That's so cool.
Yeah. So it's 7 a.m. for us, and it's lunchtime for you, right?
Yeah, I think so. You told me 7 a.m., but I think I just kind of rushed past that, and now I'm like, oh wow, I'm getting people early in the morning.
Yeah. One time I went with someone in Canada, and the only time slot they had was 4 a.m. my time. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
no.
I showed up, girl. I showed up.
I
I'm
bet
committed.
you did. You did. You're awesome.
I was like, oh my gosh.
Listen, I get it, because back to when I was telling you about that job, I worked with business partners from all over. So there were some times where I had to go home and take a call at 10 o'clock at night because that was their morning. And I'm like,
right?
yeah.
It's like, what can you do? That was your job, right?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to share with everybody. So I'm Desmond. I'm the host of Healing with Aloha Podcast. I own Healing with Aloha. I launched a podcast to bring hope globally. And through Instagram, it's mostly through Instagram that I've connected with people who are like-minded and that can fully understand what I'm trying to get across, whether it's grief and mental health. And I found Celi. I think I was looking at, like, you hashtag, I think it was mental health or something, you popped up. And so, I started following her and watching her. What I appreciate most about you, Celi, is how you're honest, you're real. And hi guys, good morning. I appreciate how you're able to use humor to break the stigma of mental health, because as a society we tend to put labels on people and we assume the worst.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why people can't come out and say, hey, I'm having a hard time, or I'm feeling depressed, or without people freaking out.
Right.
So
There's a shame.
Celi, this is our first time meeting each other. So with further ado, Celi, can you tell them a little bit why you created your Instagram and why you do what you do?
Yeah. Thank you. I'm so excited. First of all, I love, I'm going to have to get as savvy as you and get all those filters going.
No, it's there. Look on the bottom of your screen. Do you see a happy face?
I'll just let them see the real me for now. Maybe in the mid 2021, I'll get a little fancier, but
okay, well, we'll work on that one.
So thanks for having me. I'll try to keep it brief because I can talk, but the reason I started my account is pretty much the same things you're saying, right? I got really tired of not being able to say that I was struggling in life, because I found that, and especially for someone, so I have, I'm a person of faith, and in the place that I worship, most people don't understand that you can be mentally ill and still believe in the God that we believe in.
Yes.
And so I just got really exhausted hearing people tell me that I just had to be positive, or that I just had to pray more, or that I just had to stop thinking about the past. And it's frustrating because I was believing that that's what I needed to do. And so I'm working hard, beating myself up for not being able to let go of the past, or be less depressed, or think more positive, until, I had a really, really serious nervous breakdown in 2018. And I almost lost my life to suicide because I was exhausted from trying to pretend to be something that I no longer was. I wasn't okay. It wasn't that I wasn't happy. I loved my life. I loved the people in it. I loved, all the things that made up my life, but there was pain that I couldn't get rid of by just being positive.
Right. Yeah, you're struggling. Yeah.
And so, I was very, very serious about the ideation in 2018, so serious that it scared me. And I remember getting to work and calling my husband because I couldn't stop crying, because I'm like, wow, I really want to do this. And, you know, we had known that I was struggling. That was just like what I call my rock bottom moment. And so I had to come home because I was just crying at work nonstop. And everybody's looking at me like, what the heck is what, here's this, like we were talking earlier, high functioning, bad A girl who's like killing it all the time. And I'm crying at my desk and can't stop. And so I came home to work from home, and my husband looked at me. He's like, no, we need to go to the hospital. Like, you're at that point. And I remember feeling shame. Like, I can't go to the hospital. What is my family going to think? What are my friends going to think? What are people going to say? Are they going to think that I'm being dramatic? I'm looking for attention.
Yeah.
And I worried about my finances. I can't not work right now. Like, I have to provide. And then I just gave up all of those notions because I knew that what I was doing wasn't working. And so that leads me to why I started this account after some really, really good treatment for the first time in my life. And I sought. Let me tell you, it wasn't for lack of seeking that I wasn't getting the treatment that I needed. As you know, the mental health industry is very, very far behind. And it shouldn't be, but it is.
Yeah.
And so I was blessed to get into this program that changed my life with DBT therapy and trauma therapy. I got the proper diagnosis at that point. And I remember every day sitting there crying, thinking, there are so many people that can use this. Like, why are we walking around limping as a society when there are resources that work? Like, why don't we know that they're there? Like, how come I've been searching for 20 years and I haven't found anything like this, right? And understanding that some people are not financially fortunate enough to go seek those treatments, or, maybe their insurance doesn't cover it, or whatever the reason may be, I felt like, why can't I just teach some of the stuff I'm learning for free? Like, why can't, I wish I would have found an account like this when I was struggling. I didn't even know. I thought Instagram was just for people thinking they're cute. and people is me.
Hey, let's be honest, you're also on TikTok, so that's awesome.
Thank you.
That's another story.
When I started, like, I'm gonna be completely honest, this may make you laugh. I thought I was like the first one who came up with this idea. Like, I'm gonna get on Instagram and tell everybody.
Right. I'm gonna tell everybody about mental health, breaking the stigma.
And then I found that there is an amazing community on Instagram that already does this so well in so many different ways. And, I'm going to be honest, the first year that I started posting, I was discouraged. I think most of us go through that. We're like, is anybody listening? Like, who cares? Who cares about my life? Who cares? Yeah. But I've found that I've made some really amazing connections through here, including like people like you, just amazing people all over the world that have made me cry because I don't want them to feel that pain, and yet they do. And that's the reality for so many people. And so it's a passion project for me. It's a passion project to reach out to even just one person to say, you're not alone. You're not crazy for feeling the things that you're feeling.
It's so funny because that's exactly why I did the podcast. It wasn't, I really, like, I'm not worried about numbers. I'm not worried. I told myself, if I just help one person who's feeling so alone in their grief, or who's feeling so alone because they have a mental illness, I did my job,
right.
And I think that's kind of like how you are. It's like, it's not about being popular. It's not about being known. It's just, I really care. And I want you to know you feel alone, but you're never alone. P. Flans like the 87 says, you're right. It's such a great platform to get connected. Yeah, like there's different platforms. For some reason, Instagram has been the most supportive group for talking about mental health, talking about grief, and just empowerment. And,
what I like about Instagram, and so I'm 40 plus, right? I'm 40 plus content creator.
I'm 45, guys. I'm turning 46 in 2 months.
I'm just saying 40 plus because other people will hear that and be like, oh my gosh, she's so old.
No,
I don't feel old at all. But what I love, so let me tell you, Instagram was not one of the places I was going to start because
Oh,
I
really?
thought it was too complicated. And then it made me realize that it's more of a interest-based community anyway. So it makes so much sense that you can advocate and teach about mental wellness through this platform and reach the people that need to be reached, because those people are searching for the same hashtags and things like that.
Yes.
So that's what I love about the Instagram community, that you can really find people that want to hear what you're talking about, right? My friends and family may not care. That's fine. And most of the time that's how it is, right?
Right.
They're like,
"Don't
girl,
talk
I know
about
the real
this. Don't
you,
talk
shut
about
up.
that." Yeah. Like, why'd you say that? Or why you like, block me. Block me. I
Yeah.
tell people, like, if you have a problem with my posting, you can unfollow me and block me.
Yeah, because I'm not doing it for you, really. And not to
Yeah.
be mean, like, hey, if you don't need what I'm putting out, that's fine, but somebody else does. So let's not make it difficult for those people, right? I should be able to share freely. And we shouldn't be ashamed of what we're talking about, period.
I want to ask you, so why do you feel, because for me and you, we tend to like we go deep, we have real talks with people through TikTok and through Instagram, but why do you find that using humor, for me, dancing and singing, why do you feel like it connects people and it makes it like, like, why do you think it draws people in when we're using humor and even dancing? Because I know you use a lot of humor. Like, I crack up, I'm like, dude, that's the truth.
So I love the question, and I don't know that I've ever put any thought to it, because honestly, it's just my personality. Like, I was the person at the lunch table making everyone, like, we would have funny lunch table conversations that would make everyone in the lunchroom look at us like, you're wearing nice suits and ties and you guys are acting crazy.
Right.
But I think that I use humor, and this may go a little left on you.
Oh, no, it's okay, because I might shock you too.
So my mom and dad, they did their best. That's all I can say. They did their best. My father was very, very abusive, unfortunately, towards my mother, and it caused a lot of chaos in my own life. And I found that when I was funny, because I was just funny by nature as a child, my dad and my mom would laugh hysterically, and they would
Really?
actually, yeah, it would be like the only time in my memory bank that they were still and getting along, because they were laughing at me.
Oh. Right.
But what's crazy is it took trauma work to understand that about myself. And I think I finally figured it out last year, like, oh, humor is more of a defense. And humor is my way of getting people to be unified on this thought. Right. And so, but what I love about that, right, is we could look at that story and be like, oh, poor Celi, she went through that. But I see it more like, okay, yeah, those were the defense mechanisms that I had to use then. However, that makes me who I am today, and it makes me be able to relate to people that maybe someone else can't relate to them that way, because I'm using humor. So I don't think that I ever really put thought into the format.
You just
if anything,
what you do. That's
yeah,
awesome.
if I've learned to be myself. Because if you look at my Instagram account in the beginning, it was very fake, just the picture and
Proper.
Yeah. And that's just not who I am. And as I started thinking about what I really wanted it to be, it got less about the aesthetic. It got less about the time I post. It got less about all those things that you learn, which are great depending on what you're in here for. Yeah. And now I'm just like, hey, I'm going to be myself. And you know what? The people that really love me in my life, they know that girl anyway.
Yeah.
So
Like, if you
now they have to choose.
If you go deep and you're crying, and the next thing you know, you're like laughing. They're like,
oh yeah, why not? That's real life, right? Like, have you ever done DBT work?
It was called, what was it called? I haven't done it. I did. I think it is. I was talking about this online, but I got 2006. I got diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, and this was after the fact that my sister died. But I did the tapping.
Oh, okay. Is that EMDR?
Yes, that's what. See, it is EMDR. That's what I was gonna say. But it's been a while.
Yeah.
That person, the psychologist, I love him. But basically, my sister dying is what was like the straw on the camel's back with my mental health. And my older sister, I was pregnant, said you need to go see a psychologist because when you become a parent, all those issues you never dealt with is gonna come up, and it
That's so
did.
true. That's good advice.
Yeah, and so when I went, I got diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, and I got to talk about everything I never talked about growing up.
Wow.
And it was intense. But it was a relief. But like you said, you try your best to stay together and to be strong and, happy and positive. And, I'm a woman of faith, and, I was going to church, I was in leadership and whatnot, but it's like, something's wrong.
Right.
And nobody can really relate, first of all, and then my sister dies after being in a car accident. And then people make like the people in my life, except for the teenagers, because I used to lead in the teens ministry, they never asked like, oh, how am I doing? Or, what was your sister like? And so it's like, you feel like it's a family secret. People have so much secrets growing up. And then you become an adult, you should be able to talk about things. But then some people are afraid to talk about mental health, afraid to talk about tragedy,
Right.
but it's like, when you hold it in, it's going to come out somehow, some way. And so therapy was what I needed. And
I'm glad.
You got to be careful who you choose to. They have to be respectful of your beliefs and your culture.
Absolutely.
And I've had people where after 1-2 sessions, I'm like, not going back to this person because they're insensitive.
I believe in interviewing your therapist 100% because I think that what happens is many of us don't really, because we're not aware of mental illness and wellness and the ins and outs of it, right? Until it's like too late. And so most of us think that we're like being done a favor by going to therapy. No, you work for me. Yes, there's a mutual respect and all that stuff, but I'm hiring you to help me. So I believe in interviewing your therapist and asking like, do you specialize? Like, let's say you need trauma work. Okay, do you specialize in trauma? No, then I need to move on to the next person.
Like, do you understand domestic violence? Do you understand what it's like to be raised by someone who is an alcoholic, a drug addict, drug dealer? Like, because if you don't, then me telling you my stuff is going to go over you.
Absolutely. And I think that that's why, unfortunately, so many people end up leaving therapy because they're not paired with the right person. So, and I think, again, that goes back to this is why we do what we do on Instagram, because a little information here.
We're not psychologists. We're not restricted.
Exactly. And a little info here and a little info there adds up eventually, right? So it could be a 30-second video of me saying, hey, interview your therapist. It could be a 30-second video of you saying, hey, it's okay to grieve and talk about it, even if people are uncomfortable. It's those little things that we start thinking about and saying, like, maybe there's some truth to that. Maybe I should start looking into that,
Yeah.
So, yeah, I agree with you. I'm glad you had trauma work. I'm glad you were able to do that. And I'm glad.
It's sad, though. It had to happen after my sister died because, like what you said, like a lot of people don't, like society, people don't encourage it. Like, oh, why don't you go see a therapist? Why don't you go see a psychologist? Why don't you go see because this is back in, my sister died 2001. So like in the 90s, I was 80s and 90s, I was going through a lot.
You're crazy if you go in the 80s and 90s. If you went to a therapist, you're automatically crazy.
Yep. And then I live on an island. I don't know if you're from a small town, but hello, everybody can see you going in and out of the office. So it's obvious that, oh, she has something going on with her. She has a mental health issue and whatnot. And it's like,
wow, I never, that's interesting. So,
I mean,
I'm curious. Private, I'm curious, what is it like in Hawaiian culture? Is it like more frowned upon, do you feel like, to see mental health specialists?
It just honestly, just really depends on the individuals and the people and whatnot. I'm Filipino, Hawaiian, Spanish, Chinese, and I've talked to other people who are therapists or even people who've received therapy that are like Filipino or Hawaiian, and they feel shame because it's like they were told that, oh, just be strong. Why you gotta go see someone else? Just talk to me.
Right.
you know?
Why are you
And
telling the family stuff?
yeah, and I think this is what I think. The reason why people are afraid that we or whoever needs the help goes to get help, they're afraid they're gonna get exposed. Like the people who are most like, why do you have to go see someone? You're not crazy. Why are you
Yep.
crazy? It's because they fear you're gonna tell the truth and it's gonna expose the things that happen to you that shouldn't have happened to you. Someone's gonna validate that the abuse, the verbal abuse, the mental abuse, psychological abuse wasn't right. And they fear that. But for you to forgive people, you got to forgive yourself because you allow certain things to happen and then you can move on. But if in the back of your head, you're always feeling the things that you were told, like you're stupid and dumb, if you sincerely believe that, you're never going to have healthy relationships.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. We have to unlearn the things.
Bad relationships your whole life. You're like, that's all you see. You see people beating on each other verbally and physically. I can't be with a good person. Like, it's weird because it's not toxic.
No, I hear you. I think you're incredibly brave and strong for going against the grain in your family. I just think it's brave because I know that that's always met with some resistance and it's not easy, but good on you for not caring and doing what you needed to do to get better. Because I always think, like, I know it's wishful thinking, right? But if most people were to get the help that they needed, I think society would be very different. I think in many ways we would be so healthy that the crap that we deal with from sources that are authoritarian over us, it wouldn't have as much power over us because we'd be healthy.
Yeah, but and most of us have boundaries and you'd be able to speak up. Like, I don't care who you are, CEO, CFO, or whatever. That's inappropriate, and that's you are creating a hostile environment, and it's toxic, and you need to change. Because if not, then I'm not going to be here. And I've told that to a recent employer. Like, I feel like I'm in a hostile environment when I go to work, and that's wrong. Yeah. And people are not used to people speaking up. It's like, no, dude, I'm not the only one who's feeling depressed. I go into work happy. I come out like, what the hell was that?
Yeah. And it happens in so many workplaces. I mean, the abuse that people are taking lately, I feel, just gets more severe and more severe because, and this is where I always go back to, most people are unmentally well. So we have people running corporations that are unmentally well. We have people working in places, like, there's just unmentally well people all over the place. And we expect for everyone to be good. It's not okay. So, my dream is that more people would go get help than less.
Yeah. And I think, like, what you're doing and I'm doing is, like, if people would stop assuming that someone who admits, I have depression, I have PTSD, I have borderline personality, I'm schizophrenic. If people wouldn't judge so much, then people would admit, and then you can try to have compassion and understanding. But because people just assume, oh, she has this, oh, I don't want to hire her, oh, you can't work for me, because then
you're not reliable.
Yeah. And so,
and we're like the most reliable. Like, what are you talking about? We're so anxious. I'm gonna be here 10 minutes, 15 minutes early every day.
I'm so like, I'm an empath. Like, you don't have to worry about me taking care of people. Like, it's automatic. Like, I'm so thoughtful.
But you know what? You're so right. You made me remember something that happens to me all the time with this account, right? I find that when I promote products, there are certain people who are less likely, like, and I'm not promoting products for money either. Yeah. I love small business. Like, that's another passion of mine. So I like to support small business. So I may buy something and really love it and put together a video and just shout them out because I think it was great and I want to support.
Yeah.
And they will not reshare it, but they'll reshare everybody else's, right? Because I'm a mental illness account. And I'm like,
oh, really?
Damn. Are you kidding? And you can feel it. Like, I can feel it happening because I'm looking at the other shares and I'm like, why is mine different? Mine is actually what better put together. What's wrong with you, right?
Right? Yeah.
But that's how bad the stigma is.
Wait, you know why? I tell you why, and we talked about this because we're conservative people. Like, yeah, we talk about mental health, but
only if it's pretty.
Yeah, we're not. I don't know. I'm 45, guys. I'm gonna be 46 in 2 months. When you get into your 40s and 50s, you realize that getting attention, the wrong kind of attention from people, like, I don't care if you think I'm sexy. I really want you to know that I'm compassionate and I'm smart.
Right.
That is more important than you thinking I'm pretty.
Absolutely. I agree. 100%.
So you 100%. And our whole vibe, it's not about being pretty, although.
Even though we are killing it.
I know that all of us are cute. But like, yeah, so I'm like you. I swing between humor, dancing, and singing because performing arts, like that kind of stuff, and entertaining people, that's my way of, like you with your parents, is like, it's a way to diffuse any kind of negativity, negative vibes that could go on in our lives. That's why I do it. I do it for me, and if you laugh at me, that's cool, because then it breaks you from feeling so like alone or feeling so
right.
We all have bad days, and we all have something. I honestly think we all have some type of mental illness. It's just we need to cross paths with people to realize it. That
absolutely,
yeah, you thought this was okay. Yelling at your kids or yelling at your spouse, yelling at people is okay. No.
I'm a recovering addict. No, really, I lived with guilt and shame for so many years because I had such a short fuse. I have borderline personality disorder, which is hell and back. And I didn't understand that back then. So now I'm able to say, oh, that's my BPD brain. But back then it was like, ah! And I just thought I was an evil person. I just thought I was evil.
Did they teach you coping skills? Like, because that's awesome. Like, did you learn coping skills when you did therapy? Is that why?
Yeah. So I went through a program, like a day program, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. And it was a lot of DBT work and trauma work. So the DBT work is learning that, and that's why I had asked early, DBT is a lot of learning that you can have two opposite things happening at the same time. For people with borderline personality disorder, we're black and white thinkers. It's all or nothing. And so there's no gray. They teach us that there's a gray. So like I can be angry and happy.
Thank you, Lonnie. Have a good day.
Thanks for joining. I've learned that I can be angry and happy at the same time. Whereas before I was like, how's that possible? I have to be one. And so they really taught me that you can have two things happening at the same time. I don't know where I was going with that, but.
No. Send me that information. So being that we're in Hawaii in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, like there's therapists, psychologists, there's licensed professionals, but we don't have access to certain types of therapy because it just depends, and then maybe they get trained, but they never move to Hawaii.
Right.
Or if there is, it could be like one person. Or, you know what I mean? So,
and high demand, low.
Like our island only has a little over 60,000 people without tourists.
Wow.
And then there's other islands that is way less than that.
Yeah, I can send you the information. I can also send you a link to a book that they gave us. It's a workbook for DBT.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So you can read through it. It's very self-guided, and you can learn some of those skills there and teach them as well.
Mm-hmm. No, and I appreciate it. I mean, there's just so much information out there, and the support. What hashtag would you recommend people who want to learn more like about mental health that you find helpful for you? Like other than looking hashtag mental health on Instagram, like is there other hashtags that you've used or searched?
Yeah, so I'm gonna be honest, I don't really search for following, more for like what's gonna work when I post. But I will say what I find is the best is going down to the level you need, right? So if you know that you have anxiety, then I would start looking at hashtags that start with anxiety relief, anxiety tips, anxiety coping skills, right? So you want to kind of go down into that detail because mental health is so broad, right? I mean, you look up mental health, you get stuff that's only talking about stretching, and then you talk about, you got people crying. So it's so like broad.
No, I mean, so like with grief, for example,
Yeah.
um, they say like the 5 stages of grief. Well, I have a friend, she's a grief educator. She's like, no, the 5 stages of grief was intended for someone who's preparing to die. It's not intended for a person who's grieving because someone else is dying. And I didn't know
I
that.
never knew that.
Yeah, so she's she's on the podcast. I think she's my first interview last year.
That's cool.
I'll send you the link. And then she wrote some stories to explain grief, like the loss of a loved one, about a dog, a pet dying, and then how to explain to children. And
Wow.
then yeah, she's really great. But I'm like, this year makes 20 years since my sister died. She was 23 years old back in 2001.
Wow.
And so when I talk about grief, it's different because who I was back then, it was like, I was mad. I was pissed off. I was in denial for so long. And I never thought I'd get to this point because, you know, I had strong ideations too. You know what I mean? Like feeling guilty as an older sister. I always felt like me and my
Survivor's
brothers,
guilt.
we have to watch over her, and we did. She's like an awesome person. So I'm going into 20 years this year. So when I'm talking to people who are grieving, they're all at different stages, you know? And so I'm very sensitive to that. But what I want people to know is I spent 17 years struggling with the idea she passed away. And only doing the podcast, I started it when the 17th year.
Wow.
Because it's not something I want to talk about. Like, no, I don't want to see my sister die. I want to say my sister's here, you know? And so, but I do dancing and I do sing. I used to feel guilty for posting, singing, and dancing. But I was like, you know what? This is my therapy.
Right
here. You know what I mean? Humor, dancing, and singing. And my sister would have wanted me to be happy.
Right.
You
and
know,
who makes the rules on what we're supposed to feel?
Yeah,
exactly. That was my biggest lesson from these 2 years that I've been working on myself, is like, who made rules that I have to be sad right now because things are going wrong? Yeah, I mean, things are going wrong. There are always going to be things going wrong, right?
Yeah.
So I think that a lot of people like us who have gone through tough childhoods self-punish, and we need to learn not to. So I've loved talking with you. I think we have to wrap up though soon, because I should have told you this in the beginning. I have so I had shock therapy.
Oh, you have an appointment?
No. I used to have shock therapy, so my brain took a hit, unfortunately. So after about 20 to 30 minutes of talking, it starts dying on me.
Oh no.
Like a battery.
No. It's okay.
So
but
I apologize. I should have told you
No.
that ahead of time.
You're doing awesome. But thank you so much.
No way. I have loved this. I hope that we get to do it again.
Yeah.
I love that you talk about grief, because it's a really tricky subject. Keep doing what you're doing. Like, it's, you know, I know we talked earlier about not caring about metrics. Like, don't care about metrics, because I know that you're touching people that need to be touched and need to hear what you're saying, because no one else is saying it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I admire what you're doing, and I love that you're courageous enough to just not have any shame about it. Good. That's how it should be.
Yeah. Well, when I get to meet people like you, it makes it worth it.
I'm glad. Yeah, I'm really glad. No crying.
I know.
Yeah.
But yes, I'll keep in touch with you, and definitely, I'm sure we can do something in the near future,
Yes.
fun like workshop or something online, because nowadays we're from home. So
yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. It was awesome. Take care of yourself.
Okay, bye. Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining us. If you guys are watching the replay of this, Celi, follow her on Breaking the Stigma. Look, I'm all nervous over here. But anyways, thank you, Celi. I just want everybody to know that no matter what you're going through, you're not alone, and you have nothing to prove to anybody. And if you ever need someone, you can always message me and reach out. I talk about grief, and I talk about mental health, because we need to, and we are always living, learning, and growing. And I just wanted to send my love and aloha from the island of Kauai. Ahui ho.